There once was a time when the gods were gods without question, when men were men without example, when heroes were only the frivolous dreams of lurid mortality. It was a time when truths and untruths were indistinguishable, hatred and love were equally excusable, and life and death regaled all of humanity in the same breath. Myths of old were realized, and legends were born from the very dust man was formed of, to be told and retold until the grace of time altered them beyond knowing or forgot them completely. Still, some tales were preserved deep within the hearts of mankind, for reasons that could not be fathomed, perhaps bearing the fruit of some profound truth, or kept alive merely by the strength of the men who lived them. Some tales would never be forgotten.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fandom Forum. This is our 5th episode, and today we're going to be talking about Joshua Robertson's Kaelandur series, or more aptly, the Thrice 9 Legends, because it's very hard to avoid the idea of this world without somewhat going into the entirety of it. We will be focusing more on the actual Kaelandur series, but like I said, there'll be some folding into, and I do actually have some questions that will relate to the entirety of this world. And I'm here with an incredible group of Joshua Robertson fans and incredible readers and incredible writers themselves, all of which have a great connection to Josh and this world, and I'm super excited to have them all here, and I will have them introduce themselves here.
So I am Amanda Hester, and I am the CEO and founder of OWS Inc., a literary company founded by authors for authors. I am also an author and the wrangler of the majority of the people on this panel tonight, and a fan of both Josh and his wife.
I am Heidi Angell, and I am the author of The Hunter Saga and the Survivalist Bible series, which just released this October, and the Clear Angel Chronicles and House School series. I also am the CFO for Our Right Side, and I wrangle money.
Hey, I am Rebekah Jonesy. I am Joshua Robertson's #1 fan, and I will fight you all for that title. I'm also an author. I write urban fantasy and other kinds of fantasies. And I am the COO of OWS. I wrangle authors.
Hello, everybody. I am Robert CANO, and I'm the least illustrious individual on this panel.
Okay.
I am an author as well. And I may not be Josh's #1 fan as far as his books go, but I am probably his #1 fan as far as a person, as far as an individual, because he's awesome.
So the series we're going to be talking about, again, is Joshua Robertson's Kaelandur series. It's 3 books, Melkorka, Daindare, and Maharia. And the series centers around a magical dagger called the Kaelandur, and it is filled with unlikely heroes and very interesting and intricate worlds, and very much about a journey that is unexpected, I would say, in most respects, but has certainly a lot of merit to it. And we get to enjoy this journey through the eyes of one particular character in Branimir.
This is Branimir.
There you go.
Told you I was #1 fan.
I know Josh says that's Branimir, but I just can't accept that as my Branimir.
No, his hair is too thin. It's not long enough.
Agreed.
He does a great job of setting this world up right from the beginning. But I'm curious, for those of us who have never been walking in this world before, what's something that you really get a attached to right off the bat? What is something that just really sucks you in right from the get-go?
For me, it was the creativity of having a world that wasn't Tolkien based. I love fantasy. I love epic fantasy, dark fantasy, but so much of it is so very Tolkien based. And Josh weighs heavily on the Slavic legends and myths and naming conventions. And so it was really fun getting that whole, and for me, that's not a culture that I know a lot about, their legends and their myths. So it was fun getting introduced to it in his, and I actually, because of his books, went on a whole like I'm weird, but it's the geek in me. But I went and started researching all of this stuff, and it's impressive how much he brought into his own work. For me, it felt like a completely original work. And then when he mentioned in one of his things that it's Slavic based, that set me off on searching that. But it's really cool how he takes that non-Western cultural information and develops it, and it leaves room for you to be surprised in a way that a lot of Tolkien type fantasy doesn't.
From page 1 to basically the last page, you're going, were these the good guys? Or there is no good, there is no evil, there is no right, there is no wrong. We live in a very gray world, and we're trying to do the best we can based on the information we have. So every step of the way, everyone's like, most of them, except, Falmagon, he's a jerk. But everyone is constantly checking themselves, going, should we do this? Should we do this? Loved it. Loved it.
I would say I agree with Heidi. I really love how seamlessly Josh writes that sometimes when I'm reading authors that I know, it's hard for me to get out of their head because it's like, I know you, I know your voice. But it's easy to get lost in his writing, and he writes so seamlessly that you are constantly going, wait, did he research that or did he make that up? Like constantly.
I think for me, the easiest way to put it would be Branimir himself, because we're talking about little Kraz, who may not be the best looking guy on the planet. He's tiny, can turn invisible. So there's a lot of depth to him straight out the gate. And then you find out that they're just nothing in this world of Melkorka. They're literal nothings, slaves, and
thought to be extinct.
Exactly. And then you really get even more depth when you start getting introduced to the Highborn and you meet Dorothy and you start getting a sense of the world. So within the first few pages, there's so much going on anyway, between the creation of Kaelandur, the killing of the Aratek, and, Branimir, all seen through this lens of Branimir's eyes. And then you have the flood of demons and stuff, right? And so, like, seeing everything through the eyes of, like, this tiny little slave who's basically powerless was probably the most captivating thing. I think everybody else gave, like, really cool, awesome answers. But for me, it was the simple aspects of it. Like, I read a lot of fantasy as well, Tolkien and otherwise, but what was beautiful about what he did was he went in a completely non-conventional route, not just using Slavic myth, but using something like a slave, something like a little creature that, is mistreated. And we're going to see everything unfold through that person's eyes.
I should mention that book 1, Melkorka, it begins with, Robert didn't give anything away for those looking at hoping not to get any spoilers. There's no spoiler with that. It is actually the setup of the entire of the series, is that what Robert was talking about, which is on book 1 in Melkorka, I guess on the verge of a demon apocalypse. The slave who is of the race that Robert was talking about, the Cross, that's Branimir, has been taken, and this incident happened where this dagger became a magical dagger and killed somebody it really wasn't meant to do, and now there's an epic journey that takes place within Melkorka to the ash tree, and that's how this whole thing begins. So just to throw that out there, I should have done that from the beginning, and I apologize.
You know, unlikely hero is kind of a common thing, I would say, in the last 10 years or so with fantasy. But usually their unlikely heroes are people who want to be heroes, people who they may not be the chosen one, but they want to be the chosen one, and then they end up being the chosen one. And in this case, our unlikely heroes are truly unlikely heroes, and maybe not all of those people are as good as they claim to be. And so his playing with those expectations as well is really it's a fun twist that I enjoyed.
Also, there's the whole journey of Brands himself, because he starts off knowing nothing about this. You know, he's over 100 years old. He knows nothing about this. They intentionally keep them ignorant of everything. So when he starts off, you know, it's basically his first time leaving, you know, the area around town.
Well, I think we need to kind of qualify that a little bit, because the Cross, because of their long lives and everything, they also
I didn't want to give any spoilers.
Well, they are the historians, right? And that's not giving anything away. That's just letting you know they're the keepers of the history. But you're right in that all the information given is kind of segmented and compartmentalized, you know, so the information they have is mostly like individuals and events, like specific events. So they don't get like all the information as to what a demon is or what it means or anything like that. And so it's kind of interesting the way information is dispersed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't even know what an heretic is.
And it's also interesting the way that reflects how history is recorded too. We don't tell history, we tell his story. And that's what the Crafts are doing, which is why the two main heroes seem like the good guys at first, because Bran sees them that way too. He sees them as the leaders and they're doing this for good because that's the impression they've always given him.
Because that's what they're supposed to do.
And I want to do this periodically throughout our conversation. I want you all to, I'm going to ask you this 3 separate times. And so the first time I'm going to ask you at the point of when this journey begins for Bran, give us one word you would use to describe, or give us a little bit of what you would describe who he is at this point in the story.
Very childlike.
Sheltered.
This is going to sound funny, but I always look at him through the lens of Dorothy, because that's where we get a sense of who Branimir is through his interaction with Dorothy, right? And so that's where I think the childlike and ignorance comes through.
So when we get through Melkorka and we get into Dindar, there is a significant gap. There's a 1,200-year gap. And there's a reason for it, and there's a specific idea behind it. Why do you think, though, in your mind, does it work so well, and why does it matter so much?
I think because the transformation that started at the end of book 1 in the characters is basically finished at the beginning of book 2. Like, you know, something has to happen.
When you're reading series like this and you have this timeline, the way he has it set up, as a reader, it is a different type of immersion into a world that you feel, because you feel that time lapse. And that makes you feel like you've committed 1,200 years into this world. Like, it's a different feeling than a high fantasy book that is everything crammed into this time period.
Also, and with the way he with the way he did that, you don't just feel that, but you also feel the loss and the pain of trying to come back. And it's like, okay, like the ground looks the same, but even the peoples are different.
Yep.
Like, you know, what happened to the people who used to live here that we had such a good interaction with? And now there's, you know, these guys. And what are those guys? And
see, I love Rebekah because she just leads me right into the next question. It's fantastic. And that's was my next question. So we're introduced to some very interesting and different people in Dindare. And so of those, which ones do you think a new reader should pay attention to most, and who are some of your favorites? What do you like about them?
who are the bobblehead people again? I think you should probably pay attention to them.
I found the blue skin people. It's Uville, the Uville
Thank you.
people.
But yeah, you need to pay attention to those people and the color of their clothes.
Was Tyr introduced in Dindare? I'm trying to remember. I know he was in Maharia, and I think he had a small cameo in Dindare. I'm trying to remember.
He is.
He is the giant, and he is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But keep an eye out for him because he plays a much bigger role later. And he has bigger roles in other parts
really,
of
in
the world.
Dindare, keep an eye out for all of the bit characters.
Bringing the discussion back to Brandomir, how would you describe him now in Dindare? Where do you think he is in Dindare? What words would you use to describe him for that?
2 words: total badass. It takes the part of my upsettedness actually happens because he sometimes refuses to act when he should, and that just kind of made me frustrated. But dude, when he acts, oh my god, it's magic. I love it. It's brilliant.
Also, I would say a little bit jaded. He's starting to see the world in a much darker view than he had in Malporca, trying to choose who he's going to be and figure out how to fix the mess that he feels like he was responsible for creating, even though all he did was he followed along, right? I mean, he didn't initiate any of it. He was just this unfortunate sidekick. And now he's like, I've got to fix this because I can't trust this guy to fix this because I think this guy did this on purpose.
Also, and this is what really points it out to me why I love him so much, is it also gave him a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm. He got funny.
You screamed so loud at that giant snake.
It's like a cycle of awareness. He first has this very sheltered sense of self, and then as he's more aware of what's going on around him and the people around him, it changes his perspective on himself. And then as his perspective on himself changes, his perspective on the people around him changes. It's like this whole cycle of awareness.
And then his perspective of the different races changes, and then the literal world itself, and of course the gods as well.
So let's get into Maharia a little bit then from there and talk about who are some of ancillary characters that get introduced in the Maharias in the book Maharia that you think, again, we should be paying attention to, that you really gravitated toward. I mean, there's not as many as there are in Dindare, but there are a couple that come into play here that hadn't been there before. So what do you think?
Right. Well, Solana actually was introduced in Dindare. So, but the whole like Solana thing, I'm not gonna spoilers, but that almost had me dropping Josh's stuff too. And then he told me that you get another taste of her in, was it Skin Cutter's Daughter?
Yeah.
It's my to be read. But yeah, he's don't get attached to any of Josh's characters, because any of them could have horrible things happen to them or horribly change and you realize that you actually hate them, or end up just leaving and not coming back for God knows how long. So don't get super attached to anybody.
So in Maharia, how would we describe Branimir at this point?
His mind has been kind of broken, I think.
I think it's a lot worse than his mind. I think his mind is fine. I think it's his soul.
Yeah.
Spirit broken.
He is soul bruised, if not broken.
Yeah. But like a lot of people talk about, the traumas and the struggles that they go through shape who they are. And some people get broken and others take that break and become better people. That's exactly what he's striving to do. He realized, holy crap, we are probably the bad guys. I'm not going to be the bad guy in this story. I'm going to fix this.
So why do you think this story works so well in Branimir's voice, or does it? And do you think he was the right person to tell this story?
I think so, because this story is so complex. It needed to come from someone who is
seemingly an outsider,
so ignorant of everything that he's not going to influence
and yet
the story.
It's an unintentional coming of age story.
With the good guy, bad guy arc being so ambiguous, like there is not another voice in the book that could have portrayed it that way from that perspective without skewing the reader's view of who's on what side.
Yeah, exactly.
It was impressive to be able to keep that so gray.
Well,
which is amusing considering he's crimson.
I'll just state the obvious here, in that Branimir was the only person around for all of the events that took place. So
That's
it
true
kind
too.
of had to be told through his lens, right? I mean, there would have been too much left out if it was Dorothy or any of the others. Dorothy is the only other one that it could have possibly been, and even like that, there is too much that would have been left out.
Too much information that needs to be discovered. Yeah. And that's the other thing, technically, because he's writing epic fantasy, he could have had multiple perspectives, but to choose to only tell it from the one perspective, I thought was a bold choice. And I think it works better than if you tried to do it from multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he does waver a few times.
A couple times, but it's not enough, because pretty much
the main story mainly follows.
Yeah, and even what isn't told directly through third person limited, you get the sense that Branimir is still telling the story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it still feels like his voice.
It still feels like his voice. Yeah, like if the
like
book
it was told to him and he was recording it.
Yeah, like he decided to write it after all the events took place, right? That's the feeling that I get.
How about settings? Is there a specific setting that you all love that you've never seen before?
No. Sometimes he spends too much time on the water, but there's a lot of really good character development going on, so I overlook those.
Yeah.
I give him crap. I give him crap sometimes. But no, I think that the ash tree was really cool, and one of my favorite characters is Elizabeth. She's amazing.
I am totally with you right there, Robert.
She's
I love Elizabeth. She is like
I
the
love
definition of a strong female.
Right? She's like femme fatale fox, like almost literally. It's fantastic. And super smart. Like, she's been around a while, so she's amazing. She might actually be my favorite character other than like Dorothy.
If you paid an amount of money or won a contest that enabled you to make Josh sit down and write a book based through this series on a specific character that you want to know more about, what character would you make him write about?
Adamus.
I knew Heidi was going to say Adamus, so I'm going with, what's the name of his first friend at the second Highborn? The leader of the cross.
How about the blue bobblehead people? Let's just do all of them.
Who live?
Because I had a really good answer for this one, and that's already been done. So, Highborn Longwalker, you guys can all thank me, was because of me.
He's
Just
a
saying.
jerk.
It's okay. I don't care. Falmagon's awesome. I'm a jerk too. It's all good.
If you're somebody who picked up this trilogy after this incredible discussion that we're having, and you read the trilogy, we all know that there's other books and they're all tied together in the Thrice 9 Legends. What one book would you say that person who just finished the trilogy has to go and check out that is important to giving context to what they just read in the trilogy?
Highborn Longwalker. One, it gives the backstory to Falmagon and Nadezda, and those are very important to understanding the full picture of what is going on starting in Milcorca.
Mhm.
And
But don't read it first.
don't read it first.
It'll ruin the fun.
Read the trilogy first so that you have those questions in your head. And then when you go back and you start seeing these characters fleshed out and you have these questions, your questions will start being answered. And it's brilliant. Highborn Longwalker might be his best work, in all honesty. Dindare is still my
Also-
favorite right now, but it's amazing. Go ahead.
Also, it doesn't just explain who the characters themselves are, it also explains what the Highborn Longwalker actually is.
Yes.
Or should be, used to be,
Right. It also
before
explains...
it got twisted.
Well, it doesn't really explain, but it gives you more of a definition, I guess, between who the Highborn are and who the Stuia are. And that's also really important to understanding, like, specifically Dorfe, right? Who's like a weird...
Yeah.
What is your favorite scene that is a non-spoiler scene that you just you could read over and over again?
Giant snake. To me, that really shows Bran, how much Bran grew up and changed and came into himself and forged a real friendship with Dorothy instead of master and slave. When he is teasing Dorothy about the snake and screaming like a little girl.
I agree. I loved that. That was the first time I actually liked Bran instead of felt sorry for him. So yeah, I totally second that one.
For me, the exchange with the guard where they were like, how do you not know who we are? And they had that realization that, oh, we are not as important as we thought we were. And we're trying to convince somebody that we're important.
What would you say to fantasy lovers who've never heard of this series? How would you get them to read this book? What is the most unique thing about it in your mind that is different from anything else anybody's ever read?
The fact that you can read them by publication date, or you can read them in the chronological, that's a mouthful, order, and you get well-rounded stories either way.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is very unique for an ongoing series.
And one of the things that I love about the Kaelandur series, I can't say this name for the rest of his books yet, but I can let my 14-year-old read these. They're dark, they're heavy, there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about that helps him traverse the world we're living in now that in a lot of ways is just as chaotic.
If you like thinking, get these books. They will make you think.
Mm-hmm.
And they will make you think about everything.
If you enjoy fantasy and you enjoy, worlds that are not normal, if you enjoy mythology, that was probably what drew me in the most, was the mythology. And it's not it's based on Slavic mythology, but he creates a world all his own, and he creates a mythology all his own. And
Mhm.
I love that, because that is one of those things that, to me, it actually makes sense. And the way he put it all together, he found something in Slavic mythology that he could use. He changed the name a little bit, and he created something out of it. And it was fantastic, from the gods to the creatures to everything. And then he puts his spin on it, right? And in a lot of ways, that's what fantasy is. Josh, the person, like I said, I became a fan of him before I ever read any of his work. And so he's one of the reasons I actually decided to go ahead and pursue writing in any real form. And that was one of those things that I think was really amazing. He and I could just sit and talk about fantasy. We could just sit and talk about the worlds that we create, and about these different races, and about all this different stuff. And after I got into his world, it opened up a lot for me, and gave him ideas, and he'd give me ideas, and we'd just go back and forth, and it was really freaking cool. Like, it was really awesome. It was one of those things that I appreciate him.
I read a wide variety of different books growing up, but I think fantasy is probably the one that really secured my imagination and fascinated me, just again with the worlds and the escape, and these beautiful places that people built up. Whether I was reading R.A. Salvatore or Robert Jordan or J.R.R. Tolkien, I just love the imagination and the world building they did. And again, growing up, a lot of the play that I engaged in was imaginary play. I was out in the yard with sticks, rescuing princesses and fighting off, bad guys. And so it was almost like taking my play and bringing it over into literature.
Let me just say this real quickly to everybody watching, that I didn't purposely bring these 4 people here. They all were on my list in terms of being a part of this particular conversation. And of course, if they hadn't volunteered, like Amanda did not volunteer, I went and got her and brought her here. And I wanted all 4 of these people here, regardless of who else was going to be here. And I'm so glad it's just the 4 of us, actually, because what you got a taste of in this episode, not only is how awesome these books are and how great Josh Robertson is, and how much you need to read this if you're a fantasy lover, but you also got a great taste of something that's near and dear to my heart. Actually, 2 things that are near and dear to my heart. And that is the Beautiful Book Geeks, because the Beautiful Book Geeks do this monthly. This is not something that I got all 3 of these gals together and they just started talking. No, they did it. They did it themselves. This is how their show goes. It is fantastic. You need to go and check it out. Please go check this show out and be a part of it, because these are the conversations that need to be had about books like this and stories like this. And the 3 women are amazing women. They're very multi-talented. They're incredible artists themselves, and they're incredible businesswomen. And I am super honored to call them my friends, and to be a part of their world together. But this. I wanted them, and I wanted Robert specifically, because I have to tell you something about Robert that he doesn't hear very often, but he should every day of his life, and that is how spectacular a person he is, and how much he is an amazing, amazing, talented artist himself. And we will do one of these fandoms for him eventually. We're gonna let him get more of his stuff out there for everybody, because he's got some incredible things coming. And if you haven't picked up the Dark Archer, you need to go do so right now as well. Because Joshua Robertson had a hand in how the Dark Archer became the Dark Archer. And Robert will be the first to tell you that. So it ties everything together. And it makes, you know, this particular fandom very special to me and very special to hopefully all of you go and check out the Thrice 9 Legends. You go check out the Kaelandur series. I have to say, you know, this is what this is all about. We're here to support one another. We're here to cherish the art that we create, and I hope that you all appreciate that and learn to love it like we do, and then come and talk to us when you do absorb it, because every one of these folks here would love, as you can tell, this will be edited, so you won't know how actual long we've been speaking, but we've been speaking a very, very long time, and it's been nonstop passion from all of them, and I can't thank them enough, all of them, for being here and doing this. We had to work some scheduling around it, and it worked out, and I'm so glad that you all came and were part of this. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you for being who you are and doing what you do. It's very important, because it is always time to go indie now. And we'll see you guys next time on the show. Go get this awesome art. All right, everybody. Bye.